Oh boy, get ready for some mild fireworks. Confirmation hearings for Judge KETANJI Brown Jackson today kicking off on Capitol Hill. In her opening statement, President Biden's nominee said the nomination has been extremely humbling. Watch.
It is extremely humbling to be considered for Justice Breyer's seat, and I know that I could never fill his shoes. But if confirmed, I would hope to carry on his spirit. I hope that you will see how much I love our country and the Constitution and the rights that make us free.
I also love the Constitution. Republican senators say they're pulling no punches, but they also say they're not letting it turn into a Kavanaugh-style smear job. Watch this.
This will not be a political circus. This will not be the kind of character smear that sadly our Democratic colleagues have gotten very good at.
The most recent Supreme Court nominee was subjected to repeated accusations that were nothing more than unfiltered religious bigotry against her. The nominee before her was accused of serial rape.
No Republican senator is going to unleash on you an attack about your character when the hearing is virtually over. None of us, I hope, have been sitting on information about you as a person for weeks or months.
Dianne Feinstein's like, don't look at me. Is this going to get ugly? Here with me to discuss, the Federalist editor-in-chief and Fox News contributor, Mollie Hemingway. Welcome back to the show, Mollie.
Great to be here with you.
So how is this thing going to go? Obviously, you know, she's going to do what they all do. She's going to defer. She's going to reframe questions. She's not going to answer anything overtly. She's not going to answer any hypotheticals. So if there are people who are opposed to her judicial philosophy, how do they get to the truth of her beliefs?
Well, I first off want to point out that during the Kavanaugh confirmation hearings, it wasn't just that after the confirmation hearings had ended that the Washington Post and other activists rolled out Christine Blasey Ford and they reopened the hearings. On the very first day of those Kavanaugh confirmation hearings, the Republican senator who led the hearings, Chuck Grassley, was interrupted repeatedly. He couldn't even make his 10-minute opening statement for over an hour because of how many times he was repeated. People were getting arrested. This is, you know, long before any accusations of serial gang rape. The whole hearings were a mess and a circus from the get-go. That is very much in contrast with what we're seeing today, where Republicans allowed Dick Durbin to give his 10-minute opening statement in 10 minutes. They did not interject or disrupt or create a circus scene or get people arrested. They just politely listened. But it seems that Democrats want it to be where they just allow this nomination to go through without any critical thinking or any kind of review of what Judge Brown Jackson's judicial philosophy is. And instead, they should actually be digging into that because she is an incredibly radical judge. She has shown that to be the case. And so it's very important for a seat on the high court that you actually understand what her judicial philosophy is.
But she has been confirmed by the Senate twice already, so they are familiar with her. Are there any Republicans who are already on board with her nomination?
Kennedy, on that point, though, when you're confirming for a lower position, it's not so important that you dig into what the judicial philosophy is. When you're one of the 9 on the Supreme Court, you actually aren't just going with precedent. You actually have to explain what your view of the Constitution is. And this judge is backed by some of the most left-wing groups. I thought it was interesting she said she loved the Constitution, because some of the groups that spent literally, I mean, altogether like $1 billion to elect Joe Biden and make sure that she was the nominee have said really horrible things about the Constitution. Believing it should be destroyed, believing it's a document that is not good. She herself seems to support the administrative state against the Constitution. She very much fights some of the deregulatory efforts that have been put in place to restore to the original Constitution. She has very left-wing political views that, you know, these are things all worthy of being explored when you're putting someone on the highest court in the land.
And
just because you shouldn't do what Democrats did.
That is the job of those senators. Having said that, are there any Republicans so far who have said that they are warming to the idea of a Justice KETANJI Brown Jackson?
I don't know. I think all the senators on this committee will take their role very seriously. It's important that all the Republican senators do that as well, and that they
I mean, I would hope the Democrats do that as well.
View her with an open mind.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I think they're all probably going to march in lockstep. But everyone should treat it with an open mind, but also not just view it as something that should be allowed to happen when it could have such horrible effects on the country to have someone who doesn't have a high regard for the Constitution, the balance of powers, and government outline for the people.
If she's as radical as you've laid out, people in West Virginia and parts of Arizona aren't going to be happy with that. So what are Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema saying thus far?
Well, that will be what will be interesting about going into this. That there are a bunch of people who are up for re-election who have already made some votes that are very difficult. You know, in Arizona, Montana, West Virginia, that are going to face tough elections this November, and that's why I think the Democrats don't want to actually get into what her judicial philosophy is or what some of her more extreme viewpoints are, because they know that could bode poorly for their re-election efforts.
I can't wait. I think that people who are facing a lifetime appointment, I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat or if you think you share someone's judicial philosophy, you absolutely have to press them and ask the right questions that these nominees are forced to answer. I think a lot of times these senators do a really bad job of repeating other people's questions.
Oh, yeah.
They don't coordinate with one another, and they also ask either yes or no questions or ones that can be wriggled out of. And I hope that doesn't happen here. I hope that they learn at least some lesson. And I heard she had a hell of a time at spring break when she was a junior in high school. So I'm excited for that to come up. Mollie, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.